Hello, BookTube. Once again, I thought I would take you through the week in books, where we look at some books that are out now or will be out very shortly, in a matter of days, rather than as my typical way, in a matter of months. These are books that you will see online for sale and in new bookstores, and I wanted you to see them with my recommendation ringing in your ear if that's what you want to get. First one is a little loopy, and it has some flaws, but I ended up loving it. It's called Being a Beast by Charles Foster, and it is his somewhat new journalist, somewhat posturing, but ultimately very endearing attempt to become an animal, to become a couple of different kinds of animal. The segment where he tries to become a badger, lives in a den under a tree, eats earthworms, that sort of thing, is the most winning stretch in the book. But the whole thing is, it's got the mother of all blurbs on it. When it comes to wilderness porn, it's going to be very hard to beat Being a Beast. Not sure I know what wilderness porn is, but then again, I've spent a lot more time in the wilderness than most people, so maybe I'm not the target audience. But as far as a meditation on humans and versus other kinds of animals, it's if you like that kind of thing, you're going to like this book. Next one, I'm sure we've seen it on this channel before. It's just a straightforward history. Isn't that lovely? A straightforward history of Shakespeare's First Folio, one of the most famous and influential books in the modern era. And it's been done before, but I don't recall. I mean, I've read everything about Shakespeare. So many books on the First Folio, so many books on Shakespeare, so many books on each play, so many books on publishing and drama and stagecraft and politics in his time. But I don't recall ever reading an account of the First Folio that was quite as good as this one. So if you have a Shakespeare fan on your list, or if you are one yourself, this is actually, every year sees a couple. This is a Shakespeare book that you actually should add to your collection. Most of them come and go. But this one is, I think, the best account of the First Folio's life and history and influence that certainly that I've ever read. Our next one is a big biography of the controversial photographer Diane Arbus. This is her life in all of its riotous contradictions. Just wonderful. Not the first biography of her, but by far the best. I've read two. This will be the third, and it benefits enormously by having been written, in the 21st century. It benefits enormously from a little distance from the provocations of her life, but also a little more. We are more aware of social nuances in the 21st century than we ever were in the 20th century. We live in a world, actually, in a lot of ways that she dreamed of, and in a lot of ways that she photographed. So if you like, it's a chunker, as you can see, if you like her work, and who doesn't like her work, and you're interested in the woman behind that work, find this book. You'll see it on the new biography tables of your local bookstores. Give it a try, or get it at the library. The next one is something you all saw me lose my cookies about. I then went on to read it. It's even better. I'm going to try and control myself here on camera. It's Hume, an intellectual biography. Now, I am recommending this book. It is brilliant from start to finish. I just don't know who I'm recommending it to. This is a tough sell. I don't know. In my own life, I know two people that I could recommend this to, and they are both book critics of a certain age, and both of them got it from the publisher, same as I did. They don't need a recommendation. I don't know. You couldn't really recommend it to the history buff on your list because there's not enough history in it. You couldn't really recommend it to the philosopher on your list if you're unlucky enough to have such a thing because there's not enough philosophy in it. I don't know. The intellectual history as a subgenre seems to me to be very endangered simply by a lack of readership, not by a lack of academics who can do it really well. Anyway, I thought I would hold it up anyway, because as far as this particular release period goes, it's an absolute masterpiece. So I'll leave you to figure out who you might know. And the last one is also a biography of a kind. It's Louis, the English king, who usually doesn't appear in the chronologies of English kings. In 1215, the same barons who would wring the Magna Carta out of King John were so dissatisfied with him as a ruler that they started casting about. They started putting an ad on YouTube on Craigslist for a king, and the one they centered on was Louis, the son and heir of the King of France, who was invited over to England and was acclaimed king in London, and took control of the treasury and chunks of the coast and even some detachments of the armed forces. Never could make it stick. he never could make it stick, and eventually departed for back home and died a appropriately gruesome death in the Albigensian Crusade. But before he did that, for a time, he was England's king, if anybody was. And this is the first book for a popular. This is Yale University Press, so popular press. This is the first time that readers, the general history buff reading public, will have been introduced to this figure, and he's fascinating, and so is the subject matter all around him. So if you know somebody who likes British history, royal history, medieval history, that sort of thing, or if you do yourself, this is a chunk of that history that you will not be as familiar with as you'd like to be. And so it's one of those rare historical books in any given year that actually fills in some terrain. So I highly recommend it. And there you go. That is the week in books. That's a little bit of everything, except I'm noticing right now as I look at the file, there's no fiction. Oops. Maybe I'll make a sequel. I gotta throw a bone to the made-up stories, don't I? Considering that they're enormously more popular than anything I'm talking about. Oh my. Alright, well anyway. I'll slink off now and read a novel or something. But I'll talk to you all again soon. Thank you, BookTube.